So yeah, today on the PHENIX podcast, we've got Kyeson Utley on. He works with PHENIX Investigations a lot on internet-based investigations. Kyeson, welcome.
Hi, yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so jumping right into it, obviously it's 2025 and cryptocurrency is the national conversation. You work deeply in crypto and the blockchain and on the dark web. You want to talk to us just really quickly about how you got started in the evolution of your career and where you are right now?
Yeah, of course. So I'll do a quick little run through. I started off as a penetration tester or ethical hacker, doing the things a bad guy would do, but doing them for the good guys instead. Compromising their systems, finding the holes, and then allowing them to have the first crack at fixing them instead of letting somebody exploit their systems. So I got into that field and then transitioned into private intelligence, linked up with a former CIA officer and some former military personnel. Founded this awesome private intelligence agency, and we did all kinds of cases for HSI, the IRS, a lot of high dollar monetary fraud cases. And ever since then, it's just been all about crypto for me, crypto and darknet searches, and just really getting in there and seeing what I can find.
So obviously crypto has taken off huge in the last few years. I look and see there's 25 billion lost in crypto related crimes last year. What have you seen over the last few years in terms of the growth of crypto scams?
Yeah, so when it comes to crypto scams, there's a lot of talk about pig butchering, which is taking somebody for all they're worth, is the short version of saying what pig butchering is. It's just when a bad actor reaches out, forms a relationship, and then continues to take all of the money that they can from you before you have to ultimately file bankruptcy. So that's a big one. And on top of that, just like there are crypto scams, I always say that there are more crypto recovery scams out there, just because there are so many people who are willing to throw more money at their problem when they lost so much already. And these people take advantage of it, and they take even more money and more money from them, and they take 10, 20, $30,000 retainers, knowing that the clients are never going to get the money back. And it's really sickening because they don't even do the work.
God, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So is that the one of your main areas of focus is helping prevent crypto scams, finding or crypto recovery?
Yeah, before I worked with law enforcement and I did crypto tracing, blockchain forensics, and I, like I said, worked with law enforcement, different entities to try to pinpoint the bad actors, to try to recover funds. But the percentage of recovery it wasn't as high as I'd liked it to be. So in terms of taking those cases, I've kind of stepped back from it and focused more on divorce cases and government cases where the government is investigating rather than individuals, because with individuals, it is truly at the mercy of law enforcement.
Right. I want to zoom out for a second. So, Brian, obviously, you've been in investigations for 30 years or more, and you've seen the world and technology evolve substantially over that time, and it's evolving faster. How do you see people like Kyeson fitting into your world today and moving forward?
Yeah, Kyeson and guys like him are a game changer. How fast the world is moving, and more and more times, as it gets more sophisticated in cyber and the internet, investigative wise, boots on the ground, questions, all of those things, you still have your limitations when it comes to that. And so really it's another big world out there to be able to follow, okay, who was it? Who owned the wallet? Where did those things go? Where did the money go? How many transactions? Those types of things. I would say lots of times for the client, when they're losing maybe millions of dollars, for them to spend $10, $20, $30,000 on an investigation to get to the bottom of it, lots of times that's money well spent just from a closure perspective of like, look, we can't go any further. We show that this was divided again and divided again. But oftentimes I'm involved in cases where the bad guys just slip up with one email address that was linked to them personally, or an IP address, or something that, oh, we're back in the game, right? And then to being able to do that and reverse engineering it. And and getting, and I have been, a part of big types of recoveries, when it comes to that, and finding those transactions. So as an investigator, you figure out you can't do everything. You can't be an expert at everything. And so Kyeson, for example, is a tremendous resource to be able to go and take that next step. And it really leaves other investigative companies behind because they don't have those skill sets, right? And so that's the way of the world and where we're going.
Yeah, so Kyeson, from my perspective, it kind of takes the traditional investigative world, and obviously PHENIX is on the forefront of technology, but when crimes go to the dark web into blockchain, we partner with resources like Kyeson to connect all of the dots. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever a crime takes place, and then you need to be able to identify where the money went, you have to first pull the wallet or pull the transaction history of whoever it is you're looking after or looking out for or going after. And whenever you're doing that, it gets really, really complicated, really, really quick, especially when you have sophisticated actors and they're using technologies like Tor, the dark web, onion routing, some sort of it's an encrypted connection that makes you anonymous, to be short. But whenever you're doing that and routing through the blockchain and routing through mixers while being anonymous through Tor, it challenges the investigator and pushes to like the upper limits of what you can and can't do, because it gets really tricky.
So I'm going to slam the brakes and address the layman in the room. So can you briefly explain, kind of for the layperson, what is the blockchain and what is dark web?
Yeah, of course. So I'll start with the dark web. The dark web actually was invented by the Navy. I want to say that was in 2000, if I'm not mistaken, is when it was they released it under a free license, and it was picked up by a company called the Tor Project, which is a nonprofit. But that is why we have the Tor browser, because Tor is the name of the company, and that's how you access the dark web. Or darknet is how you do it. So it's as simple as clicking on a browser and then knowing where to go. It's not all that complicated. There's a lot of mystery that surrounds it, but at the end of the day, it's simple. It's as simple as going to a search engine, typing in what you're wanting, and doing this all within the Tor browser.
I think it has a reputation, and justifiably, for nefarious activities, from something as simple as drug trade to human trafficking. Are there good actors on the dark web, or is it all bad stuff?
I mean, I would say it's 90% bad, 90% scams. At that, I mean, there are people who have intel leak sites or different services where you can insider trade on the stock markets and things like that, and those people don't have they're not necessarily doing it maliciously, but it's still a crime. It's still illegal. You still can't do that. So.
And it's easier, I would assume, to scam people on the dark web because, in the same sense that I can't call the police if someone steals my illegal drugs.
Exactly. Exactly.
So talk a little bit about, I think one of the things that confuses, everyone understands the idea of encryption. Can you talk a little bit about encryption and blockchain and why that creates such devastating challenges for non-technical investigators and people that get scammed?
Yeah, so nowadays they make it pretty simple to do crypto investigations. It's all about paying an obscenely high license, and then once you have the license, it's a matter of pointing and clicking. Chainalysis is one that is very popular in the blockchain tracing space, and that one is like driving an automatic car, so to speak. You press go, and then it'll trace it out for you. It does all the hard work, but with that, there is a percent of error. Personally, I prefer manual cars, just like I do my manual Explorers. And whenever you're manually looking through the blockchain, you're able to identify and see patterns of things that you would normally miss. Chainalysis is not going to trace through Tornado Cash, for example, which is a big mixer on the dark web, which allows people, and clear web, but allows you to take your dirty money, put it in there, send it to these guys, and they'll send you back clean money. And tracing through that is very difficult to do automatically. I mean, I've only ever done it a handful of times, but each time it took 30 plus days and dozens of hours. Truly, it's not fun.
So, Brian, you and I have spoken at great length to this difference between you can go online and do a low cost background check that essentially just calls on some profiles and gives you a cheap report versus a background profile like PHENIX would do, where it's much more comprehensive, it's manual, it's checked, it's admissible. Is this the same type of thing in your world, Kyeson? It's accessible to do things automatically, but you're going to get substandard results, and there's always an expert like yourself that can take it further and be more comprehensive?
Exactly. That's exactly the reality. Whenever you're looking at some of these investigations conducted by other investigators, they give you a nice little report. It looks great, but when you start asking the questions, specific technical questions, that's when they get lost, and that's when they're just going to kind of cut you off and be done, just because they don't understand exactly what happened. So how could they explain it to you?
So, Brian,
Yeah, and Scott, I would add to that is, again, Tyson is no different than a saw, a hammer, a drill. Those things that you need, right? And I think lots of investigators just regurgitate mostly public information and then call it an investigation. It's very one-dimensional. The information is not informative, not helpful. And so being a true investigator, and you don't solve it at the commercial break, right? And so it's one of those things to where you take it to the point, and if you don't have the ability to get that information, you find somebody else that does have that ability, right? And it makes a team in order to have that thirst for knowledge and being able to get that information and piece those things together. So sometimes we can take it 85%, but boy, we're just missing that one or two pieces, and then dealing with companies like Kyeson's in order to just be able to, whoa, I got 10% of that, and that 10% of that really opens it up and completes and gives a full story, from a recovery perspective and things. So yeah, super valuable in the way of the world now. When you look at, we all either have been part of some attempted fraud scheme against you, were solicited on and bombarded on a daily basis, or have family or friends that actually have been victims of this. And there's lots of people walking the planet that have no idea to date that they're already victims of this, right? And so kind of being able to do that A to Z, I think, is really important, but it really is the next step in the investigative world.
On that point, this is going to get bigger and bigger. So, Brian, in your world, there's already kind of a consensus among attorneys that PHENIX is a quality investigative firm. You've got hundreds of reviews. So that is something that you can see from the outside. In Kyeson's world, there isn't visible reputation around people like you. You mentioned earlier that there are crypto recovery scammers. How is someone in a small investigation firm looking for a partner like yours or a private consumer, how do they avoid being scammed, and how do they know the right person to work with?
That's a hard question. These guys are very, very good. They're very good at scamming people. This is what they do. This is their job. They can make it look really nice. They could take, I've had a client, not even a real client, but I've had a client pay me to do a crypto investigation. I completed the crypto investigation, and then my work was then rebranded and used as examples for other people to show and say, hey, look at this work that I just did. So whenever it comes down to it, you got to do your own due diligence, so to speak. You got to look into who you're talking to. You can Google someone's name. You can ask them to provide license, proving that you're a legitimate investigator. You can do different things like that. But asking for work, setting up in-person meetings. I meet with my clients in person if they request it. I'll fly wherever they would need me to be. Anytime they request it, if that's what it takes to sign somebody and help them out, I'll do it. But in terms of finding a good investigator, you just got to look out. You got to look out for them. You got to do your own homework, and you just, above all, be careful.
Yeah. I would add, keep in mind the ripple effect, right? Just cyber in general. So we're talking about cyber crimes and Bitcoin and being able to, but I'm working a case, for example, high dollar divorce case, husband's hiding all kinds of assets and moving them internationally and things like that, right? And so to just do some type of cyber investigation to show, oh, he has a wallet and some of these assets are in Bitcoin, right? Or moved into Bitcoin is tremendous to be able to show the judge. Like, hey, I know we think this is in the movies and this isn't a real thing, but in fact, we can show that it's a real thing and how it's connected and how this person's trying to hide their assets. Or cyberbullying we see a lot, right? And so we see that, whether it's extortion, shakedown. Hey, I found images on the dark web of you, and if you don't, you were on Ashley Madison, a dating site for married people, and you're still married. There's all of these schemes to say, oh, if you don't give me this money, I'm going to expose you. And so to be able to kind of pull back the curtain, see who's behind that, and people like Kyeson that are extremely bright and just don't take no for an answer. These people think that they're clever oftentimes, right? And then they do step 1 through 5, but they didn't think about step 8 or 10, right? And then as you unravel and say, I got you in an identity. And now that you're full circle, right back into a boots on the ground investigation, right? And that we can do it and we can bring it to law enforcement. And Kyeson's been a part of a lot of these. Is you can say the word crypto to law enforcement and their eyes roll 6s in the back of their head. And it's like, okay, you lost me at hello, right? And it's like, oh, I'm not doing this because this is something that I just don't know or feel comfortable with. So it's an easy out for law enforcement. So as investigators, you have to do their job for them most of the time and put a nice tidy little bow on it and be like, no, we thought you were going to say that. So here's the information, this and that. Use your subpoena power to go do it and, go and pursue the bad guy. So I would just say the sky's the limit of how people are using the internet to scam people. Ultimately, crypto or these different Bitcoins oftentimes is the way to launder monies, but all the other ways in which they use the internet to commit their crimes. Oftentimes I run into situations dealing with federal law enforcement to where, oh, you were able to show it here to here and it went across state lines, or they use Google, who's in San Francisco and these guys are in Missouri. So that's a federal, and now it's on a federal level versus, a state level, and, all of those things in between. So whether ultimately you can unravel it all each and every time, no, sometimes you can't come to a positive conclusion, i.e. get the client's money back or things, but it is very necessary in order to pursue it from a civil or a criminal perspective. And most investigators just have certain limitations of what they can get, so.
It's often the case that obviously, Kyeson, you're a perfect example as an ethical hacker. You have the good and the bad constantly fighting, and the bad guys evolving their approach forces the good guys to keep evolving with them. Kyeson, you and Brian working together seem like at the absolute forefront of what the good guys are capable of. What do you think is next for the bad guys?
Well, I had a call earlier this morning, actually, and it was this very topic. We were talking about that, what's next for the bad guys. What they've been doing recently, hackers aren't hackers anymore. It's not where somebody knows how to manipulate code or exploit an exploit. It's all prepackaged, pre-developed. You pay $200, you can download this file that's an exe to exploit whoever you want. You can pay another $200 to encrypt it so that the computer doesn't recognize it as a virus. I mean, it's now been monetized to where anybody who even remotely understands computers can be a hacker, just because it's so available and widely distributed nowadays. And it makes it really easy, and there's no chance in stopping it either, because there are so many different websites out there right now, and when you get one taken down, another one just pops right up under a different brand, a new identity, and they keep doing the same thing over and over again, and that is skyrocketing cybercrime. It's helping the bad guys win.
So is what you're saying in the same way that I could download Mario Brothers to my Nintendo Switch, I can buy ransomware as a service?
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
So it's the online version of people buying credit card swiping tools to attach to ATMs and gas stations.
Yeah, that's exactly that's a good analogy. Absolutely.
What does that look like to say my dad, who might not be savvy on the internet? What is a type of problem or scam that he would run into as a victim of one of these off-the-shelf scamwares?
Yeah, I mean, it can be as simple or as elaborate, depending on who the target is. I mean, if I were to infect someone, for example, hypothetically, of course, I would wrap a malicious payload in a PDF. I'd bind it to a PDF, and then I would encode the name of the file so that it will read testing.pdf, for example, but it will really be an exe file. And this testing.pdf could be spoofed from a bank account. It could be spoofed from Chase Bank and say, hey, you got these bank records. We need your authorization on them. Or, hey, you have a red flag on your account. We need you to review these requests. It can come as whatever the bad actor wants it to come through as. But end of the day, you click on that PDF. You're going to open a real PDF. You're going to think you have a real PDF, but you do not. And at that point, your computer's already infected.
So for the layperson, what looks like a document that would be typical to be sent through email might actually be an executable file that puts a program on someone's computer to do malicious theft activity.
Exactly. Precisely. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where we're talking, Scott, of bailing the Titanic with a coffee can, right? And so trying to combat against this. And so what I see for more and more clients that, Kyeson and I will work on going forward is all these vulnerability assessments, right? So it's scary as hell. And what he just said, makes my hair stand on end of, boy, I don't care how savvy or what you think, you can be a victim of this. And so it's like anything else is what can you do to put additional proactive roadblocks into place, determine how vulnerable you are, right? And then being able to use certain information when there is a breach in order to be able to trace that back to the bad guys. And I think I think lots of clients think, all these people are in Nigeria or somewhere overseas. But my experience, and Kyeson can speak to this, is probably half still come back to the United States. And so, that's always helpful because, we have lots of access to lots of information in the United States and we can reach out and touch you. And so I had a case not too long ago. It was kind of like Wolf on Wall Street. These 20-something-year-olds defrauded my client out of $3+ million, didn't have any information whatsoever. It was ETFs, it was Bitcoin, these things. They hid their identity. And as we did the investigation, there was just one bit of information. We found an email, a Gmail, that ultimately came back to somebody, and they got lazy and they screwed up and they used this. And so we were able to reverse engineer and show up in Boca Raton, Florida, with this little office with 6-7 desks with all these guys, shoulder to shoulder, dialing for dollars and calling about all of these scams and this and that. And then so ultimately, as we went and flipped these guys, using that threat of law enforcement and everything that we're doing, and get done, we were able to not get all of the clients $3 million back, but I think it was something like $1.5 million of the $3 million, right? And so it was a expensive lesson, well learned, but it's not always, oh, you're just not going to be able to get it because it's a money mule and they're, moving the monies through unsuspecting 75-year-olds, right? And so they do screw up, and to be able to have those types of capabilities is, super helpful.
So, Kyeson, this is a good question for you. Say Brian, for example, he is an individual with a lot to lose. And often, Brian's customers and partners are in the same boat. What is the most that a person like Brian or myself could do to protect us from these bad actors?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I always tell people to do is hit up a app or a web application or a service one's called Optery, OPTERY.com, but it is one that scrubs you from the big data brokers. And like these, if you're a hacker or a bad actor and you're trying to target someone, which I'd say 7.5 times out of 10, a hacker is targeting someone specific. It's not just a shotgun approach. Then you need to be able to build that target profile out. You need to know their address, their relatives, their names, their phone numbers, emails, and all of that stuff is available for free on a lot of different platforms that you can just navigate to. And some of them you pay like $12 and you can get a background report on somebody. And granted, it's not a comprehensive background report. It's just a cheap little background report, but there's information on there that would be enough to compromise somebody, hands down. So being able to remove yourself from all those big data brokers is an excellent first step.
So in the same way that, criminals would prefer to pick the lowest hanging fruit, where they'll open the unlocked door instead of the locked door, walk in the house with the empty TV box rather than the one without, online criminals are going to do the same. And if the easier it is to build the profiles, those will be the people they'll hit first.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are websites called, there's websites out there. One is called DocSpin, where the work may already be done for you. You just have to go to the website. It may have everything about this person already completely typed, and that's how these bad actors, this is what they do. They take these websites that already have the work done, or they look for stolen identities that are really low price, and they buy them. And but anything you can do to make that a little harder, and by the big data brokers is the number one thing that I tell people, and the other is your passwords. Your passwords should be changed quite regularly because they do leak, they do get compromised. Google, Microsoft, they get hacked. It's just better to be better safe than sorry. One of our big sales pitches that I used to do, whenever I was pitching to somebody, I would print out information about them, like their passwords or social or something that was leaked, and then I would have that on the whiteboard or the projector whenever they walked in. And then that's a good testament to look at what's out there about you.
That was what I was going to ask Brian. I'm curious myself. Brian, do people reach out to you and ask for background profiles about themselves? I'm curious what's available for me online.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's human nature. So we do get some of that, but trying to convince a client to be proactive and maybe spend $1,000, right, where they don't need it. And I chuckle and smile inside knowing that, okay, the weeds in the garden are going to grow back and you're going to have an issue, and then you're going to have an oh shit moment, and you're going to be calling me and you're going to be spending lots more money than the preventative type of investigation. So as a go forward, Kyeson and I will continue to work and try to put some low cost solutions together for those corporate clients to maybe know what some of those vulnerabilities are. But I do get clients that say, hey, I am going to be sued for millions of dollars. So can you do an asset investigation on me? Because I want to know what it is that they might be able to find on me, right? And so, or you know what, I want you to see if you can make me anonymous or as close to anonymous. So what can you go do and scrub? And so there's some capabilities in order to do those things. But unfortunately, what is it? The an ounce of what is the saying? Ounce of cure for a pound of.
In marketing, we always say that it's harder to sell vitamins than pain relief.
Right. Yeah. And that's so true in our world. And, typically, they're coming to us with a problem already, and it's gone to, that extent. So I really think, this investigative landscape continues to change, and it will change at a very rapid pace. And investigators out there, if you don't have these tools, a saw or a hammer, and how you're going to build a true investigation, you're just going to be very limited. At the end of the day, and the way AI is now. And I think I've given you some examples already, Scott, of how we've used AI to locate properties in other countries, and, verifying that. And even me saying, oh, that information can't be accurate, it's hallucinating, to later find that, no, that thing was spot on. And so it really is a game changer. And, boy, it's just a scary future of what what this looks like.
That's a great segue to a question I have for Kyeson. So yesterday in our office, we were using, Google's VO3 video tool to make some marketing materials. And we were taking just pictures of and Brian, you're going to go nuts when I show you this stuff. But we were just taking pictures of myself and some of my coworkers and turning them into videos that looked terrifyingly real. What do you see in the future of using those types of falsified, the deep fakes is the word, as blackmail and extortion material? Are you already seeing that happen, or is that something that you talk about internally?
Yeah, so that is something that I've seen happen for a couple of years now, actually. Whenever I went to a conference in London, and whenever you walk in, they had a video playing of this girl who was convincing her parents that she was kidnapped and she was taken, and it looked like a crime documentary, is what we all thought it was, but the entire thing was AI generated. Like the little girl was AI generated, the voice was, the parents were, like, literally none of it was real. So what I do sometimes in investigations is I use AI or deepfake technology to spread disinformation on purpose. So that is something that we touched on at that I've touched on at a conference before, and it was that was something that kind of like blew the minds of people. Like why you have all these bad actors using it for bad things, but why not turn around and use it to benefit the investigation?
Can you elaborate
Like,
on that a little bit?
yeah, of course. If I needed to make a phone call to someone, and I had somebody's voice that I could synthesize, I could easily replicate the phone call and then make the voice be theirs. Of course, it would be pre-recorded responses, but you could still get something pretty convincing going on it. I have two daughters, and I test these things with my kids sometimes just to see if it's convincing enough to a child, then it's probably a concern, and it usually is convincing enough to them. So,
Brian, given the range of scams that you've seen and people that have fallen victim to scams that have been not terribly convincing, a lot of these pig butchering scams that we've talked about are pretty stupid. They come across as a text message to a wrong number that turns into a conversation where tens and hundreds and millions of dollars are exchanged. What is it going to look like in a year when someone could send a video to my dad that was me pleading for money? How are people?
Yeah. And that's been going on now for a very long time, from a more simplistic type of scam to where they're calling and saying, hey, Graham, I'm in a Mexican prison because I got in a car accident, and they think it's Johnny, and they're elderly, so they can't put it together. But now with the sophistication to what Kyeson's talking about, boy, it is really easy with the tools now to make it very convincing in order to scam that individual. And unfortunately, one of my favorite sayings is pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered, right? And so you just have so many people out there. I have one right now that the guy, got a WhatsApp text chat group. This is a very common scam. There's 50 other people on the chat, but they're all con people or bogus individuals as well. And then they're all like, yeah, I invested too. And they're in this group chat. And before long, it's the, what is it? FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, right? And so they just create that environment. And then not only do they pig butcher and, extract all their money, but then they convince them, hey, you just made $1 million in Bitcoin, but before we pay this out to you, Scott, you have to give us 30% because the government's asking for it, and the way that so they're excited. They think that they're going to get their $1 million, and then they somehow come up with another 300 grand to pay for the $1 million that doesn't exist. So they're very clever in convincing. Ideally, in a perfect world, you would have some kind of low-cost solution to help the client put those firewalls in place and that they're not victim. But the majority of the time, it's just human nature of, I think I'm going to have, this amazing payday and get rich overnight. And when it's too good to be true, it is. But when you find yourself in that, and Kyeson's, I'm sure, has seen this too, people are so embarrassed for losing their $1 million or their life savings that even when we're saying, okay, for very low cost, we might be able to connect all the dots and find the bad guy on this, they still don't want to do it because it's not financial, but it's just the embarrassment part of it. And then so for every person that's coming to us and say, oh my God, can you please help and connect the dots? There's nine others out of those 10 that are not coming forward because they just feel like all hope is lost, and it's just incredibly embarrassing. They don't even want their family members to know. So
there's always so much emotion involved in these scams. Obviously, Brian, I think you've addressed the idea that, like loneliness and hope that this person on the other line is what they say that they are. Is what triggers these scams. I think that's why something in my gut is scared of all of these AI videos, because they're able to tug on that emotional string a little bit. And to Kyeson, your point, you can buy a scamware product off the dark web for $200. I got this product from Google, it's a couple $100 a month, but I can make these deep fake videos just ham fisting into a keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
it's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you feel like we haven't even seen the start of explosive growth in your guys' industry, given how much easier scams are to perpetrate?
Yeah, I think, scams are sophisticated now, but we have a long way to go. We are on the precipice of the reasoning AI. We have the reasoning AI already. Next would be sentient AI, and then it would be, you get quantum computing coming in. Like it's going to be this big technological boom, and just like it's going to be beneficial for the good guys, the bad guys are going to have a lot more tricks in their tool belt too.
It's really interesting. Brian, a lot of your PHENIX's clients and your personal connections are attorneys, high-profile business people, some celebrities. These aren't developers, hackers, tech people. How are they going to adapt to these times? What types of partners are they going to need? What types of products are they going to need? And it just feels like 5 years from now, things will be unrecognizable from how they are today.
Yeah, it is, and it's just moving so fast. I'll answer your question by trying to educate the audience, right? Of one, it is moving fast, but we as the good guys need to work really hard and not be so closed-minded. And when it comes to investigations, to understand it is a big world, and there is other talented people out there that you can add to your team, and it's all about getting the information. And sometimes, for example, I was working not too long ago, a $4 million loss from some stolen equipment in the middle of West Texas. And we quickly came to the conclusion that we probably were not going to solve it. But what was important to go brick by brick for the investigation to be able to show, if we're not going to be able to solve it, Mr. Insurance Company, you're not going to solve it. And we have coverage for that. It's mysterious loss. And you're going to say that we're not covered because you believe it was another way. We're forcing you to prove to us that it was another way, right? So that was an example of, wow, they immediately denied us, did the investigation brick by brick, came to some very good conclusions. However, nothing definitive of 100%, but my whole strategy and consultation with that, and the client paid, 6 figures plus for that investigation. But at the end of the day, we were able to put the choker chain on the insurance company and use that. And ultimately, I think we got 75 cents on the dollar for that $4 million claim. So yeah, they had to spend 6 figures with us, but they got 3 million out of the 4 million that they were originally denied of zero. Right. So those are the value added types of things that you don't necessarily just need to catch the bad guy. You can certainly show it in a way that that information is power, like I'm always saying, and that John Gotti was, or I should say Al Capone, right, went to prison for tax evasion. There's always another way to skin the cat, right? And so investigative wise, we're thinking that, and, this is where, the Kyesons of the world come in and know with that dream team that you have that, we're going to dominate anybody else out there. And yeah, you're going to have our coverage, or we're going to get it, or we can, very educated, maneuver and consult with the client to say, look, don't spend good money after bad. This is where it is. Because oftentimes when you're dealing with such large dollar amounts, no matter what we do, it's a speck of sand on the beach, right? For what they do and what we charge them. But that has tremendous value of, do we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to litigate this, and at the end of the day, there's not going to be anything there? Or is it from a closure perspective of like, oh, this is very stressful. I lost, half of my life savings or whatever it is. From a consulting to say, look, we put it all together and you are not going to be able to get this. That has tremendous value as well. So being able to understand its totality is super important. I think that there's only 2% of investigative companies out there like us that can, put all of that together, not only from an investigation, but a consultation type of perspective. So
Kyeson, I'm going to frame a question for you. And so, Brian, on that note, a lot of the recurring theme of conversations we have is people call you for reasons A and B, and you're more of a strategist than a task doer, where you're able to connect what you know of litigation, insurance, investigation, scams, to help people understand what possibilities are there, what they should and shouldn't do, what their expectations could be, and are almost taking the lead in the approach. Kyeson, how much do you find yourself educating people that come to you? They'll come to you maybe for a problem, and you open up multiple doors and ideas for approaching the solution. People, do they understand what you even do before they come to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I am married and my wife doesn't even know what I do. She doesn't know what to tell people. So there's that. But whenever I have a case, I do exactly that. I go through multiple different avenues with a client. We touch base and determine what the best way to go is. And my goal is, like, whenever presented to a court and I have work that I did and somebody automatically goes hacking. You got this by hacking. My favorite thing that I'm able to say is, do you have a cell phone in your pocket? And do you have $4? Because if you have those two things, you can do everything I just did. And I can proceed to give that example to the court. And then I like to give that example to the client at the beginning. They don't know anything about it, but by the end of it, I want them to be as knowledgeable, at least for their specific case, as I am, because that way they won't make the same mistakes again.
It's just interesting in every field and people we talk to. It's just experience is everything in knowing where to look and how to proceed and how to frame information. It's just curious that even at a young age, you're the most experienced person out there in this world because it didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy to think about. I used to think that I missed out with Bitcoin whenever it blew up, but now I'm starting to see that in addition to a potentially booming industry, I mean, you got to do a lot of good along the way too. It's not just, trying to get rich off of something.
It's like the gold rush, right? The people that made all the monies were who sold the picks and the shovels, right? And so Kyeson sees that, we see that, how important it is to get and glean that information, and really wear the white hats to combat against, the bad guys. And there needs to be a lot more of us. And I think that there's a lot of ego-driven types of investigators in our industry that want to just say, "Oh, I'm the best at everything," but ultimately, it's the jack of all trades, master of none, right? And so, part of it is, hey, I don't know everything. I coach attorneys all the time as I can't go practice the law and do what you do, but you can't do what I do. Right. And sometimes they think that, they can do what you do. And so that's where the marriage takes place. And it's a really good balance to understand. Don't claim you're a lifeguard and then you can't swim. Right. Because there's somebody's life at risk. Right. And it's, very, very similar in this. So, I'm proud to partner with Kyeson and what he does, and tap into his ongoing resources, and super excited about how can we continue to advance this technology and this information, not only in where we think is case specific, but really just incorporate it in our box of tools in order to just be able to give that to the client each and every time.
Brian, I think what I'm hearing is obviously people come to you for situations that are high stakes, often financial, but in some cases emotional, where closure is as valuable as the finances attached to it. When you have something high stakes, ultimately you want to engage the best, and experts are going to deliver results that amateurs or jacks of all trades are not going to do. It seems as simple as, when the situation is important, contact the best.
Yeah. And again, I think it's perfectly okay to tell a client, I don't have the answer for that, or I'm not claiming that I'm the best in every core area. Mm-hmm. But, what we see other investigators, clients will come and say, hey, can you do an asset investigation? But I talked to other investigators and they said, no, you can't obtain that information. And it's like, no, you can't obtain that information under certain parameters or permissible purposes in which the government lays out. And it's a default for many investigators to just say, no, you can't get that information because I don't know how to do it. Just like it would be for me to say, oh, it's illegal to get the information that Kyeson gets because, I don't know how to get it, right? Versus saying, no, we need to embrace that ability and we need to fight the bad guys and figure it out. And you're just, as an investigator, if you don't think like the bad guy and be the devil's advocate and figure it out, you're probably not going to be a very good investigator, right? And so the term ethical hacking it's just that. I mean, if you don't learn how the bad guys are taking advantage of the situation, how on earth are you going to combat that, right? So it's constant evolution, constant training, new things in order to be able to, combat that. And that's what clients ultimately need to know. Back to your point quickly on, clients and understanding. We run into clients all the time, and I'm dealing with one that's, 6 figures plus now that, I continue to try to talk to this client and talk them out of what they continue to do. But in their world, it adds tremendous value, right? To me, in my world, I'm not overly confident the situation's going to turn out in the best for them. But in their world, they feel like they need to try and they need to have all the resources and all the information in order to make that. So who am I to ultimately make that decision for them of how they spend their money and what's important to them? So, at some point you can guide them. But it's okay. I'll carry out your wishes, and I've made this clear. And I have great relationships with some of those clients to this day for that, from, the transparency of it. But, our job is to do investigations and get the information. And sometimes even we doubt ourselves as investigators if we're going to get it. And in the 11th hour, you get this bit of information that just sends you over the moon in excitement, and you get it, and then you're able to bust it wide open and still. So you just have to put the resources in some time in order to, get the result.
Yeah, it seems like it always comes down to that in every trade. It's just the person willing to go the hardest and focus on developing their craft is going to do the best. And I think it's interesting, Brian, you always talk about these people. Like, it's hard to place a value on the things that keep you up at night and give you ulcers. And people come to you with things that sound frivolous, maybe, and non-valuable. But closing out the thing that keeps you from getting a great night's of sleep can have immeasurable value. And that's just the reality of being a human.
Yeah. As I've got to know Kyeson more immediately, I come to the conclusion of, oh my God, I need to do this on myself. I need to do this on my business. I need to see where those vulnerabilities are, right? And that's the stuff that does keep you up at night. And it's the Baba Yaga, right? It's the boogeyman from, John Wick, yeah. Right? And so, to kind of be able to do that. And I would strongly recommend, if it was with us or, anyone else, like, that's something that you should probably do, and have something preventative in the way, and know that what it might be, not just when you have a problem and investigative, but try to be preemptive on those now. So tremendous value, and we're super excited to keep advancing this ball and creating the massive distance from, other investigative companies out there.
I'm excited to see you guys develop this product. Obviously, high net worth individuals spend a lot of money on insurance and security. And I think that given the world we're headed into, preventative measures to spot vulnerabilities and protect themselves from bad actors, I think is going to be a boom industry. And it's obviously, you got to where you are by being on the forefront. So it seems like you're headed that path as well.
Absolutely.
Kyeson, I want to finish up. I'm just with, to the layperson, you live in a completely foreign world. You're so far advanced technologically from, a typical attorney or business leader. What do you think is the most important thing a layperson should know about the evolution of this type of technology?
That it's not going away, and that ignoring it is not the solution. That was a conversation I had with a complete stranger about a week ago. He's a coder. He wrote Python scripts. That was his job. And I showed him on AI how to generate a Python script, just that ran a very simple function. And he was like blown away by it. And he's like, oh, you did this? You wrote this right now? I'm like, no, I didn't write it. I had AI write it in 30 seconds. And like, that's, if you want, I'm not saying that all the jobs are going to get taken away, but in the future, more and more technology is going to be more and more relied upon. And like I said, it's just not going to go away. So shying away from it and not embracing it, that's not helping you. It's best to lean into it, take it at your own pace, and just do your best to understand and incorporate it in your daily life even. When AI first came out, I barely used it, and now I have my own AI assistant that I talk to all day long, and it's super great. It just makes life a million times easier.
I think that's really spot on. And I know, Brian, early conversations we had over a year ago, you were already talking about incorporating AI. One of the first people that I spoke about AI with on the marketing side, and obviously the foresight to be focusing on finding reliable people like Kyeson to work with is a future-proofing no-brainer for PHENIX. So I think that's the way I see it from the marketing world is you are dead in the water if you are not paying really close attention to this or finding highly trustworthy resources to partner with to help guide you.
Yeah, I agree. Now in all of my complicated investigations, I will ask AI, I'll talk a little bit about the investigation. I'll ask AI what they deem some initiatives are. And still a guy that has done it for 35 years doing investigations. Inevitably, there's an initiative that I thought, oh crap, I didn't think of that. That is actually a very good investigative initiative, right? And so to be able to use that or report writing to take that information, and oftentimes I'm just blown away of, wow, that's just articulated way better with the information that I have, and kind of being able to do that. And then technology wise, clients, when they hire an investigator, they never say, oh, well, I don't want you to be aggressive, right? Yeah. They always say, oh, I want to know that I'm hiring a super aggressive pit bull type of investigator, somebody that's really resourceful, that can tap into all of these, different things, right? And so it's our job sometimes to educate the client. Now, I can't get Trump's tax returns, but I can potentially, reverse engineer what businesses that he's done and filed certain things, and maybe make some conclusions of that. I might not be able to get that physical record, but I might be able to reverse engineer and piece some of that together, right? And so it's just being, forest through the trees and using additional resources. And I just think, to Kyeson's point, just we're at our infancy on this. And if you're not embracing technology and using it, you're going to get run over in our industry or any other industry.
Yeah, I think this conversation could be had monthly with something new every time.
Yeah.
So, Kyeson, this was awesome. Really appreciate you coming on and leaving us with your perspective. Obviously, you're at the absolute technological forefront, so love to keep the conversation going. And Brian, always a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to work with Kyeson and get him back here. And I just, as a layperson, want to hear some of those stories and hear how you connected the dots. And, I'm intrigued not only as an investigator, but I think it helps the audience click to say, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. And that's very similar to my situation. And so, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and do that now. So super excited, super stoked. Not enough time in the day to put, all of this together and advance, but we'll, continue to chip away at it.